On the morning of July 12, 1994, Zhao Dafu, a construction worker from Jiangku village in Yongyong town, Dazhu city, Sichuan province, China, went to work as usual. He returned home alone that evening to find his wife Xueqin and their 2 sons missing. Initially, Dafu assumed his wife had taken the children to visit her parents. However, the next day, his neighbor, Mrs. Ma, shared some strange news. Mrs. Ma explained that Xueqin had borrowed a pair of white plastic sandals from her the previous morning, saying she planned to go to the market. The children, not wanting to stay home, had insisted on accompanying their mother. After hearing this, Dafu instinctively thought his wife must have taken the children to stay at her parents' house after shopping. He quickly ate breakfast and cycled to his in-laws' home. By noon, despite asking everywhere and checking with relatives and friends, Dafu couldn't find any trace of his family. A sense of foreboding began to grow. Worried, Dafu went to the town market to inquire. The locals there said they hadn't seen Xueqin or the 2 boys anywhere. At this point, a Jiangku villager named Gao Yuankui provided crucial information. Gao said that on the day Xueqin disappeared, she had also gone to the town market. On her way home, she had encountered Dafu's 2 sons, Zhao Yongyong and Zhao Yongquan. The brothers were sitting on a bench by the road. Gao recognized them and invited them to return to Jiangku village together, but the older brother Yongyong said they were waiting for their mother to return. So Gao left and went back to the village. Following Gao's description, Dafu and some relatives went to the market to find the spot where the 2 brothers had stopped. Although they didn't discover anything unusual, some nearby households raised their suspicions. According to village rumors, these families had members previously involved in child abductions. Therefore, Dafu and others suspected that Xueqin and the children might have been kidnapped. After receiving Zhao Dafu's report, local police investigated these households. The most suspicious among them was a man named Pu Jijian, commonly known as Pu Sanwa by locals. Unfortunately, when police searched Pu's entire house, they found no related evidence or traces. This investigation result deeply disappointed Dafu. He still couldn't understand why his wife and children had suddenly vanished. Without evidence of kidnapping, local police could only investigate the case as a voluntary disappearance. However, since people leaving their homes was quite common in rural Dazhu at that time, the local police station couldn't allocate sufficient resources to search for Xueqin and the children. Since his family's disappearance, Dafu lost all focus on work. Cycling around searching for them became his primary concern each morning. In his worried and disappointed state, Zhao Dafu even suspected his in-laws might be hiding his family. However, Xueqin's family was equally worried. According to Xueqin's sister, their family had also searched many times. As her sister, she dreamed of Xueqin's return even in her sleep. After more than 2 months of searching, Dafu fell into complete despair. He spent his days drinking to dull the pain, but the heartache wouldn't subside. Devastated by the sudden loss of her grandchildren, Dafu's mother fell ill and passed away 6 months later. Dafu's father was equally heartbroken, visiting places where his grandchildren used to play daily, hoping to find traces of them. Unfortunately, he fell from a small bridge one day, suffering severe internal injuries that ultimately led to his death. A once peaceful family was suddenly shattered by an unexpected tragedy. As time passed, Dafu gradually accepted that he might never find his wife and children. In his family genealogy book, he made 2 notations about the disappearances. For his eldest son Yongyong, 1994, taken by mother and disappeared. For his younger son Yongquan, 1994, taken by mother and disappeared. However, one morning after 18 years, Dafu unexpectedly received a call from the local police station. The police informed him they might have found his eldest son. Dafu felt both confused and emotional. On September 8, 2012, while working as a laborer in Guangzhou, Guangdong province, Dafu's phone was constantly ringing with calls from relatives. After receiving news about his son, the usually frugal Dafu immediately bought a plane ticket and returned to his hometown in Sichuan. At the Yongxing Town Police Station in Kaijiang County, Sichuan Province, Dafu met a young man named Xu Yang. Although police hadn't yet conducted DNA testing, Dafu and his family were convinced that Xueqin was Dafu's biological son, as his face strongly resembled Dafu's, while his chin was identical to his mother Xueqin's. Finally, DNA test results confirmed their suspicions. The young man named Xueqin was indeed Yongyong, Dafu's son who had been missing for 18 years. However, according to records, Yongyong was only 7 years old when he disappeared and had few memories of his hometown. How did he find his way back? Where had he been for 18 years? And what had happened to his mother Xueqin and younger brother Yongquan? According to Yongyong's recollections, that afternoon 18 years ago, he and his brother had followed their mother to the Yongxing town market. Then a man from a roadside shop waved to Mother Xueqin, and she followed him inside. Yongyong and his brother Yongquan sat on a bench outside the shop, playing while waiting for their mother to return. Soon after, loud music began playing from inside the shop, making the brothers curious enough to go in. There, they witnessed their mother being pinned to the ground by a man. Yongyong recalled seeing another man take out a syringe and inject something into their mother's head. At this point, their mother struggled fiercely, but the man holding her down pulled out a sharp knife and stabbed her repeatedly in the back. In the following days, the two brothers were kept in a dark basement under the shop. Although Yongyong tried to escape with his brother through a window, they were caught when they reached the courtyard wall. Yongyong couldn't remember much of what happened next. He only recalled being put on a train. Because the journey was very long, he assumed they had been taken somewhere far away. They eventually arrived in a rural area of Putian City, Fujian Province. After a few days, his brother Yongquan was taken away by a man and never returned. Yongyong was soon taken to another man's house, named Xu Jinqi, who became his adoptive father. To conceal his identity, Jinqi gave Yongyong a new name, Xueqin. However, as Xueqin grew older, he discovered Jinqi wasn't his biological father. He couldn't remember his birth father's name, but recalled that his father used to wear a suit and ride a bicycle to work, while his mother was a hard-working and skilled woman who cooked well and worked in the fields, and they also raised pigs. Their life was simple but warm. Regarding his real name, Xueqin said he only remembered his nickname, Yongyong. Since becoming aware of his situation, Xueqin's desire to find his birth parents grew stronger. He kept a precious diary with its most prominent page covered in photos from childhood to adulthood, documenting his deep longing for his family. From 2000 to 2005, Xueqin specifically preserved these portrait photos, hoping to reunite with his birth parents one day. According to Xueqin, after graduating from middle school, his adoptive father sent him to apprentice at a gemstone workshop in Guangdong Province. Initially, Xueqin earned only 300 yuan, about $45 per month, not enough for rent, forcing him to survive on 2 yuan, about 30-cent noodles once a day. He lived in daily suffering, not knowing how many more years it would take to find his birth parents and brother. To find traces of his mother and brother, he drew his childhood memories, including details of his mother's abuse. Though somewhat hazy, the horrific scene remained vivid in his mind. About 3 years later, his adoptive father Jinqi returned to his hometown in Fujian, while Xueqin stayed alone in Sihui City, Guangdong Province, continuing to work. He saved money while secretly traveling to Jiangsu, Hubei, and Hunan provinces, trying to recover memories of his hometown. Although Xueqin covered his rented room's walls with photos of cities, memories of his hometown remained elusive. During the 2012 Chinese New Year, Xueqin accompanied a friend to Longchang County, Neijiang City, Sichuan Province. While dining at his friend's home, 2 dishes suddenly triggered some memories. Xueqin said the Chinese sausage and watercress reminded him of his childhood hometown flavors. He immediately realized his birth parents might be from Sichuan Province. After determining this general direction, Xueqin registered on the Baby Come Home website. However, his story shocked the website's volunteers, and its authenticity was initially questioned by the online community. When registering, he used the name Zhao Yongyong, vaguely remembering his surname was Zhao or Chao. His name contained Zhao, but he couldn't remember his mother's name anymore. To help the volunteers, Xueqin drew his hometown based on scattered memories. In the picture, he depicted dragon boat racing during the festival, his deepest childhood memory. Additionally, Xueqin drew some scenes from his hometown. According to his memories, his old house was next to his second aunt's house. There was a bamboo forest beside the old house. Behind the house were 2 ponds. As a child, he often fell into them, getting covered in mud. Another vivid memory was a small bridge not far from their house, which he crossed every day to school. Under the bridge was a small stream where he and his brother often caught fish and crabs. Based on these memory clues, volunteers began searching for missing person information across Sichuan. However, 18 years had passed since Xueqin's kidnapping, and many places in Sichuan had undergone massive changes. It was truly challenging for volunteers to find the exact location based on 18-year-old scenery. To better recall his hometown memories, volunteers took Xueqin to Sichuan to visit several locations. According to Xueqin's memory, as a child, he often heard his mother mention a place called Gao Street, which left a deep impression on him. Based on these clues, volunteers found a location, Beigao Town in Dazhu City, Sichuan. Along the way, volunteers asked everywhere. They questioned local residents about whether they had heard of a case where a mother and 2 sons disappeared in the early 1990s. Unfortunately, people there all said they had never heard of such a case. Later, volunteers and Xueqin visited the Beigao Village Committee and police station. Although local staff were very helpful, they still couldn't find any family with similar circumstances. After 7 days of continuous searching, Xueqin and the volunteers had covered all of Dazhu City. Each morning they set out full of hope, only to return disappointed in the evening. Since the search for relatives showed no progress, Xueqin dejectedly returned to Putian City, Fujian Province. He hoped to get some clues about his kidnapping from his adoptive father, Jinchi. At this moment, a middle-aged woman from Kaijiang County, Sichuan Province, suddenly called the volunteers. This phone call would uncover a secret buried for 18 years. The caller was Xiao, a resident of Kaijiang County and mother of 2 boys. One afternoon in mid-October 1993, her eldest son Wang Xiang mysteriously disappeared after school. Afterward, Xiang and her husband searched everywhere and reported to the police but found no clues. For over a decade, she never gave up searching for her son Xiang. While working away from home, besides regularly following missing person news, she also contacted Baby Come Home website staff and local Sichuan volunteers. In early September 2012, Xiao saw the article about Xueqin searching for his family. She thought it might be her son Xiang and called the volunteers. However, after several inquiries, both parties realized that the Xueqin seeking relatives in the news might be the son of a Zhao family from Yongyong town. Learning this, the volunteers became very excited. They immediately contacted the Yongyong town police station and confirmed that in Jiangku village, there indeed was a Zhao family who had lost 3 family members years ago. Then, the police went to Dafu's house. At that time, his sister said that after seeing the photo in the newspaper, she immediately believed the young man in the picture could be her brother's long-lost son, Yongyong. On September 11, 2012, in Jiangku village, Yongxing town, people gathered at the village entrance to welcome Yongyong home. After nearly 2 hours of waiting, Yongyong finally appeared at the village entrance with the volunteers. Although firecrackers exploded loudly on both sides of the village road, Yongyong's tears wouldn't stop flowing. Facing his aged father and villagers, he was speechless. His tears seemed to say everything. After completing the family reunion ceremony, Dafu led Yongyong into a room and sat down. He took out 2 old photographs that had been carefully preserved for years and showed them to his son. Looking at the childhood photos with his mother and brother, Yongyong couldn't hold back his tears. Although the reunion atmosphere was emotional, Dafu had one question he dared not ask Yongyong. After calming down from the emotional reunion, Dafu finally gathered the courage to ask the question that concerned him most. He asked his son, "How did your mother leave back then?" Yongyong seemed to have anticipated this question, so he took out the drawings he had made and told his father about the horrific scene from 18 years ago. After hearing Yongyong's account, Dafu was silent for a few seconds, then said in a deep, determined voice, "Son, I will definitely find your brother and mother. This is my only wish now." Therefore, that afternoon, Dafu took Yongyong to the Kaijiang County Police Bureau to file a report. Based on Yongyong's account and some materials he provided, the police officers in charge first confirmed the truth about his kidnapping. However, to reconstruct the details of the horrific case from 18 years ago, the police still needed to find more criminal evidence. Since Mother Xueqin and brother Yongquan were still missing and their survival status unknown, the police decided to first investigate Yongyong's kidnappers to trace the entire case. On September 13, 2012, the Kaijiang County Police Bureau sent 2 investigators with Yongyong to Putian City, Fujian Province. In a village called Hoji in Putian City, Kaijiang police found Yongyong's adoptive father and asked about the kidnappers from that year. However, Jinchi was very cold, saying it had been at least 20 years since he'd seen that kidnapper, and he no longer remembered what he looked like. Faced with Jinchi's resolute non-cooperation, the case officers felt very helpless. Therefore, Yongyong decided to ask other villagers. As a result, most villagers also spoke ambiguously, clearly unwilling to reveal information about the kidnapper. The 2 investigators had to turn to the local police station, requesting them to dispatch officers to assist in the investigation. According to Yongyong's recollection, he had stayed in another man's house for some time before his adoptive father took him home. But Yongyong didn't know where this man lived, or his name. He only remembered the man's house had a loft, with something like a temple shrine upstairs. At that time, Yongyong was locked in the loft, and he saw villagers frequently coming to burn incense and worship. To find the kidnapper's specific location, local police called Jinchi in for questioning again. This time, Jinchi clearly showed more cooperation with the investigation. According to his recollection, that year a middleman named Ah-hei had approached him, saying there was a child about 6 or 7 years old in nearby Gaoyang village, asking if he wanted to adopt. Then Jinchi had followed this middleman to another man's house. Jinchi said he paid a total of 5,800 yuan, about $850, and took Yongyong away. However, unfortunately, this middleman had now developed age-related memory loss and couldn't provide any more related clues. Therefore, police had to take Jinchi to Gaoyang village in Beigao town to point out the kidnapper's residence. According to Jinchi's recollection, the kidnapper was named Weng Jianhei, a local from Gaoyang village. Compared to that year, although Gaoyang village had undergone many significant changes, after searching house by house, Xu Jinchi finally led police to Weng Jianhei's house. Over the years, Weng Jianhei's house had been rebuilt into a multi-story building, but the small temple shrine upstairs remained almost identical to its arrangement from 18 years ago. However, faced with police questioning, Weng Jianhei only admitted to Yongyong being adopted by Xu Jinchi that year. Regarding the kidnapping, he chose to remain silent. To find a breakthrough, the investigating officers decided to first investigate Weng Jianhei's social relationships. They quickly made a rather surprising discovery. Through investigation, police learned that Weng's wife was also from Kaijiang County, Sichuan Province, and had also been kidnapped and brought here, growing up before marrying Weng. According to her statement, over 20 years ago, a man nicknamed Pian Nao Kai had kidnapped her. Later, she witnessed other children being brought to Weng's house multiple times. Through further investigation, police quickly identified the real name of this Pian Nao Kai as Zhang Jixian, 58 years old, from Xinyang town, the same hometown as Yongyong. Related documents showed that Zhang Jixian had previously been sentenced to 6 years in prison by the Kaijiang County People's Court for child kidnapping. Sentenced with him were 2 other accomplices, one of whom was Pu Sanhua, the man Dafu had suspected of kidnapping his wife and children. Based on this connection, Kaijiang police believed Zheng and Pu were likely the perpetrators who kidnapped the 2 brothers Yongyong that year. Therefore, after interrogating Weng, police quickly arrested Zheng. Simultaneously, they also quickly went to Pu's house. He was now 51 years old. During initial questioning, Pu quickly admitted that the kidnapping of the two brothers Yongyong that year was indeed his doing. However, regarding the whereabouts of Xueqin, Yongyong's mother, he still hadn't confessed the truth. He only revealed the third suspect was Liao Dingji. To quickly apprehend Liao, police immediately went to his residence for a surprise arrest. However, unexpectedly, the cunning Liao Dingji had caught wind of the news and fled beforehand. According to Pu's confession, Liao was actually his blood brother. Although adopted into the Liao family from childhood, he had always maintained an unbreakable relationship with the Pu family. Therefore, after searching all the Liao family's connections, police went to Pu relatives' homes in the neighboring town. Sure enough, they found Liao hiding there. In the interrogation room, Liao honestly told investigators, "I want to ask for the government's leniency. I'm willing to confess all crimes." Then, Liao detailed the entire criminal process from 18 years ago. The time went back to early July 1994. Due to financial difficulties, Liao had gone to Pu's house to borrow money. Unexpectedly, Pu once again proposed the kidnapping plan they had contemplated many times before. Pu told Liao that kidnapping a child could earn them several thousand yuan, and this money also sparked Liao's evil intentions. According to Pu's plan, Liao was responsible for observing targets on the street, then luring them to his shop before taking action. However, Liao had observed for several days without finding a suitable target. Therefore, Pu proposed an even more vicious plan. He said if they saw adults with children, they could kill the adults first, then kidnap the children to sell. On July 12, 1994, Liao saw Xueqin leading her two sons passing by Pu's house. Therefore, Pu actively stepped out to greet Xueqin, saying he needed her to deliver a message to someone in Jiangku village. Without suspicion, Xueqin followed Pu into the shop. To easily subdue Xueqin, Liao first turned a cassette player's volume to maximum to mask any upcoming sounds. Unexpectedly, the cassette player's sound attracted the two brothers Yongyong to run in. In a bedroom behind Pu's shop, Liao first strangled Xueqin and pinned her to the ground. At this point, Xueqin struggled violently, so Pu pulled out a knife and stabbed her. After killing Xueqin, Pu and Liao locked the two brothers Yongyong in the basement. About a week later, Pu contacted the human trafficker Zhang. Through Zhang's arrangement, the two brothers Yongyong were put on a train. They first went to Beijing, then transferred to Puqian City, Fujian Province. As for their mother Xueqin, she had been dismembered by Pu and Liao and finally buried in a vegetable garden behind Pu's house. Around 10 a.m. on February 28, 2013, police brought suspect Pu to a bicycle repair shop on Baigao Street, Yongxing Town. Around them, local residents had gathered in large numbers, hoping to learn the truth about the case as soon as possible. At the vegetable garden behind the shop, many residents had surrounded the body excavation site. Although Pu had confessed to all crimes, police still needed to find victim Xiao Xueqin's remains. According to Pu's confession, that year he and Liao had divided the body into 3 bags for burial. In 2008, he had dug up 2 bags and burned them. The burning location was in a corner of the courtyard. To ensure no criminal evidence was overlooked, technical staff meticulously crumbled each piece of dug-up soil. They carefully washed every fragment suspected to be bone. Besides some chicken and pig bone fragments, police also found some important evidence, including a fragment suspected to be human skull, some ashes from burning, plastic bag pieces used to wrap the body, and a rope used to tie the body. However, based on this evidence, technical staff still couldn't prove the victim had been buried in this garden. Their only hope was finding the 3rd unburned bag. But the case had occurred 18 years ago, and Pu said he couldn't clearly remember where the 3rd bag was buried in the vegetable garden. In this situation, the investigation team had to decide to dig about 3 feet deep across the entire garden. As a result, they quickly unearthed a plastic sandal. This sandal had basically melted, with only the sole still showing a bit of white color. By evening, a final black plastic bag was found. Inside was a bag of bones that, when assembled, formed the lower extremities of a human. DNA testing later confirmed these were Xiao Xueqin's bones from 18 years ago. At this point, the case investigation had results, and Zhao Yongyong had through his efforts brought justice for his mother. However, his brother Zhao Yongquan was still missing. To continue tracing related clues, police decided to return to Putian City, Fujian Province. This time, the human trafficker Wang led them to the family who had bought Yongquan that year. However, after deeper investigation, police discovered that Yongquan had been sold 3 times. According to Wang's confession, he had initially sold Yongquan to a local named Xueqin for 7,500 yuan, approximately $1,100. Later, Xueqin saw Yongquan constantly crying and felt unsafe, so through another middleman, he sold him at a lower price to a man named Chun, also a middleman, who then sold Yongquan to a man surnamed Wu. Through subsequent investigation, police learned that after Yongquan arrived at the Wu household, he was renamed Wu Qingfa. However, when police brought Yongyong to the Wu household, Wu Qingfa was working in Beijing. After confirming through photographs, police helped Yongyong successfully contact his brother Yongquan. On March 20th, 2013, Yongyong finally found his long-lost brother Yongquan and brought him back to their hometown in Sichuan. After 19 years, the case was finally solved, and the 2 lost sons finally returned home. For their aging father Dafu, if the eldest son Yongyong hadn't found his way home, perhaps the truth of this case would have remained buried forever. On August 14, 2014, the Dazhou City Intermediate People's Court issued its initial verdict. Defendant Pu Jijian was sentenced to death for the crimes of intentional homicide and child kidnapping. Defendant Liao Dingjie was sentenced to life imprisonment for the same crimes. Additionally, Pu Jijian and Liao Dingjie were ordered to compensate the civil plaintiffs 50.897, 50 yuan, approximately $7,500. After sentencing, defendants Pu Jijian and Liao Dingjie, dissatisfied with the verdict, immediately appealed in court. On April 20th, 2015, the Sichuan Province High People's Court issued its appeal verdict, rejecting Pu Jijian and Liao Dingjie's appeals and upholding the original sentence. On November 24, 2014, another defendant, Zheng Jixian, was sentenced by the Kaijiang County People's Court to 11 years in prison and fined 10,000 yuan, approximately $1,500, for kidnapping women and children. The illegal proceeds from his criminal activities would continue to be recovered. After successfully finding his family, the elder brother Zhao Yongyong chose to return to Sihui City to continue his work at the gemstone workshop to make a living. The elderly father Zhao Dafu brought his new wife back to Jiangku village, where they raised ducks and worked in the fields to maintain their livelihood. The younger brother Zhao Yongquan chose to settle in Beijing. Although the family had reunited, they still had to live separately in 3 different places because the beautiful days from 18 years ago could never return. And that's it for today's case. What do you think about this case? Please share in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next videos.